Uh, that was a hard one to swallow, guys. I mean, all in all, this was actually a very exciting game, and the fact that the Bulls made this a game after it looked like they were going to get embarrassed with the way they started it, to the point where you thought, is this even going to be a series that is going to be worth watching? A horrible first quarter, but after that, the Bulls came out and competed. They played with energy and effort. They actually played strong defense against the defending champions, and despite the fact that the Bucks started off the game 9-0 and even got it to 21-7, they even doubled the score by leading 32-16 at one point. The Bulls brought it all the way back and actually took the lead for a period in the third quarter, and even at one point in the fourth quarter too. So I was encouraged to see the Bulls actually make this a competitive game. I said multiple times in my videos leading up to this series, I don't expect the Bulls to win the series, but if they at least make it competitive and don't get embarrassed for 4 straight games, I'll be happy with it. Obviously, I want them to win the series, but you also have to be realistic when you're going against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks without home court advantage. But I have a lot of thoughts about this game, so let's get into it. Now, if you caught my video that I posted earlier this week, I had talked about the one thing that the Bulls have in their favor over the Bucks, and that was the fact that the Bucks, as the defending champions, have so much more to lose than the Bulls do. The Bucks losing in a first-round matchup with home court advantage against the Bulls would be an embarrassment. And because of that, the Bulls are playing with house money and need to come out hungry in game 1 and make the Bucks sweat a bit. Show that they're not going to back down despite the fact that they ended the season in a slump, despite the fact that they don't have Lonzo Ball, and that they're going to come out and compete and mean business. Now, the Bulls didn't win this game, but they showed the Bucks this isn't going to be a cakewalk sweep on to the next round. It's pretty clear that the Bulls have reignited the fire in them that we saw at the beginning of the season. I'm not saying the Bulls are playing like they did at the beginning of the season, because they're not, but the effort and energy for which they played at the beginning of the year is there, with the exception of the first quarter, of course. So you can harp on all the negatives. I know a lot of Bulls fans in the live chat were ripping into DeMar, and of course, all of the DeMar DeFrozen nicknames came back, which we'll talk about. But all the negatives aside, with the Bulls kind of crumbling in the final minute or so, a lot of missed shots in this game, ill-timed turnovers, this was overall a positive game for the Bulls. Just purely for the fact that they actually took the champs down to the wire and let them know that they're not going to go away easy. And they're going to have to play hard and earn it if they want to win the series, meaning if the Milwaukee Bucks want to win the series. Now, what was crazy to me about this game was the fact that both teams shot very poorly. Speaks volumes to both teams' defenses. I wouldn't have expected this game to end with both teams scoring under 100 points. It's also crazy that the Bulls somehow stayed in the game and kept it close despite shooting 32% from the field and an abysmal 18% from 3, going 7 for 37. Like, really, you look at that stat line and it's kind of mind-blowing that the Bulls didn't get blown out of this game. So the fact that they were able to keep it close despite missing so many shots should be another encouraging sign for them going forward, that if you can keep up that defensive intensity and start taking smarter shots, you actually have a shot against this team. Also, ball movement was really bad tonight. Only 17 assists in total as a team. That just cannot happen when you're going up against a team like the Bucks. One-on-one ISO plays isn't going to get you good looks at the basket, especially against Milwaukee. And you saw that tonight, and part of the reason why the Bulls struggled so much to generate offense, especially late in the fourth quarter. Now, I will also say, because even though I'm a biased Bulls fan, you also have to try and look at the game from equal lens sometimes. But even though the Bulls defense was very solid tonight, one of the best that we've seen in the past few months, the Bucks also just didn't play well tonight. The Bucks shot 40% themselves, 26% from 3. Yes, some of that was because of the Bulls and their A game on defense, but there were also a lot of missed shots that you normally see the Bucks make. Jrue Holiday was off tonight, Chris Middleton was off. So if you're the Bulls, yes, an encouraging game, but you also can't expect the Bucks to have another off game like this. The Bucks also had 21 turnovers. Some of those, yes, forced turnovers because of the Bulls defense, but a good portion of them were just unforced turnovers by Milwaukee from bad passes or stepping out of bounds. So just something to bear in mind, like as good as the Bulls defense was tonight, this also wasn't one of the best games for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, as far as how some of the Bulls players showed out tonight, well, I'll first say I was a little disappointed that Patrick Williams wasn't more active and moving off of the ball. He did, more so in the second half, but he looked a little timid, which I guess you can kind of expect given the fact that this is his playoff debut. But we talked about this before the series, that Patrick is going to be a very important piece for the success of the Bulls in this series in being another scoring option and a key defender on Giannis. Some of it Also was on the heavy isolation plays, which didn't allow for Patrick to get more shot attempts than he otherwise probably would, which I definitely think needs to be addressed by Billy Donovan and the coaching staff. But I hope to see Patrick being a little more assertive and calling for the ball in game 2, because we really need him as another offensive weapon. And speaking of offensive weapons, pretty tough game for DeMar DeRozan. Like I said, people were roasting him in the chat tonight, calling him DeFrozen again. Again, just game 1, and yes, I was getting just as frustrated with his shot selection and lack of passing as you guys were. And at times, he was just trying to do too much when the Bulls were actually operating much more effectively in transition or passing to cutters to the hoop. But at the same time, DeRozan still led the team in assists tonight. Still scored 18 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists to also go along with 3 steals. Like, yes, you could argue that some of his shots down the stretch could have cost us the game, but DeRozan was doing a lot of other things to keep the team in the game. Zach Lavine, a really strong third quarter to really bring the Bulls back into the game. Both him and Coby kind of led that way, actually. But even Zach, like DeMar, struggled with his shot. He was 6 for 19. DeMar was actually 6 for 25, just brutal in a playoff game. Zach was 2 for 10 from 3. Would really like to see Zach drive to the basket more. And, that 3 that he took with under 30 seconds left to go to try and tie the game was just not the right shot. Taking a deep 3 off balance is not a good shot. I'm giving him a pass because it is his first playoff game, but in the playoffs, you just have to be smarter in those types of moments. This is not a regular season game where you can throw up a hero ball shot and there are less consequences if you miss. Lavine did have a double-double, though, with 18 points and 10 rebounds. I will say Lavine was very active on the glass on the defensive end, and it was tough to see Lavine get that 5th foul, when he was playing so well. He had to go to the bench, and that kind of cooled him off a bit. Vucevic tonight, though. Some of you laughed when I said he was the Bulls' X factor for this series. He didn't shoot the ball that well, especially from deep, but then again, nobody did. Vuce was 9 for 27 from the field, 2 for 10 from 3, but this was the most active and aggressive I have seen Vuce in a long time. And it paid off. He got to the foul line. It enabled him to actually grab a lot of offensive boards. He had 8 offensive rebounds in total, which was more than he had all regular season, 17 rebounds in total. And I said in that video calling him the X factor that we need to see Vuce to be strong on the glass when going up against the size of Milwaukee. He's really our only elite rebounder. And in a series filled with bigs on the opposing team, you can't have Vuce be soft and lazy and posting up and getting bored. So the 24 points and 17 rebounds along with 2 blocks, I'll take it from Vucevic, even though his scoring was off and he missed some pretty key shots in the fourth quarter. It was the fact that it was him being more aggressive and getting involved early and fighting through the contact down low. Would love it if he stopped taking so many threes, though. That definitely would help the Bulls, in my opinion. Coby White also played well. I was pleased with what we saw from him in his playoff debut. As I mentioned before, we're going to need his scoring off the bench if we want to stay competitive with this team. Coby scored 12 points in 23 minutes, 5 for 10 from the floor. I would have liked to have seen more minutes from Ayo. I know he's a rookie, and I do think starting Caruso over him was the right call with his championship level experience. And even though Caruso struggled with his shot, he was impactful on the defensive end and provided a lot of energy that really the Bulls needed to get the team going and hustling, which you saw in the second quarter. But Ayo is another great defender, is longer, and can also be a good scoring option in the right lineup. I just would have liked to see him, put in more than 9 minutes in this one. Now, there is one piece of this game that I really wanted to call out because it really bothered me the more that I thought about it. You guys probably remember with a little over 2 minutes left to go in the game, I believe, there was a missed shot by the Bucks, and Giannis and Patrick Williams were fighting for a rebound. And Giannis was clearly going over the back of Patrick, which if he had been called for that foul, it would have been his 6th, and he would have had to watch the rest of the game from the bench, which is a pretty big loss, not having your superstar player for the final 2 minutes of the game when it's still just a 1-possession game. Instead, they called a foul on Patrick because, of course, it's Giannis. He's going to get the superstar call, especially when he already has 5 fouls. Patrick gets called for the foul, and the Bucks actually didn't score on that possession after getting the ball back. But the fact that you maintain possession, for the Bucks that is, you don't lose your superstar player, that's a big momentum shifter if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. For the Bulls, I thought Giannis was done. I thought he was getting fouled out. I thought the Bulls were getting the ball back with 2 minutes left, only down 3 points, and no Giannis. But no, Giannis gets the call, and the call actually isn't what bothered me. It's the fact that Billy Donovan in that moment didn't challenge the call. Knowing Giannis has 5 fouls, knowing that it looked like it was the incorrect call when you look up the big screen, and knowing that you have a couple timeouts if the challenge happens to be unsuccessful. Like, how do you not challenge that play? That could have been a game changer for the Bulls, knowing the Bucks are without Giannis for the last 2 minutes of the game. Now, maybe Billy knew that there's no way they're going to overturn that call on a superstar like Giannis, and it's not worth losing a timeout, but like, you might as well try. There was actually another call even later in the game that could have been challenged as well. I think it was another charge on Patrick Williams that should have been an offensive foul, and even Caruso asked for it to be challenged, but Billy didn't. I don't know, maybe I'm harping on these two plays too much, and maybe they wouldn't have made a difference in the game in the long run anyway, but it was an opportunity that I think you need to take a gamble on in these types of moments in a late game situation in the playoffs when you have the opportunity to potentially steal game 1 in Milwaukee. Anyway, it didn't fall the Bulls' way tonight. Let's hope they can come out with the same fire and energy and actually make their shots this time around and somehow steal game 2 to even the series back up before going to Chicago. But until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.